Alright guys, so this is another fanfiction idea, and this is one I've done before, even though I'm not well versed, and I used to be a fan of this in my younger years, but now it's just kind of like, to me, non-existent. So, but yeah, I figured, you know what, I like to polish this idea off because I have so much fun with it, so I thought I'd bring this back. This is, of course, the Wrestling AU. So yeah, this is a Wrestling AU, and this involves all the like Disney TV characters and has them as pro wrestlers. And there is like an overarching story, but we are going to talk about like some of the other like supporting characters and what they're all about. So let's get started. So the main story, the main thing of this story, like the main overarching plot of this story, of this universe, is that Anne and Sasha are best friends, and they've always been like wanting to be like pro wrestlers, specifically divas, and they've wanted to be part of this big wrestling circuit, and they've always done like low-level stuff. But however, their friend Marcy, who is a writer for the circuit they want to join, finally gets them a job. Like she finally gets them a job, but there's a catch. One of them has to be a babyface, meaning that's a good guy in wrestling terms, and the other has to be a heel, villain in, again, wrestling terms. So Anne and Sasha have to be, like, Anne gets to be the hero, Sasha has to play a villain. So, because they're like, well, we got some booking. Marcy's like, there's some booking issues, but but we kind of need more heels and baby faces to counteract one another. So if you got like, that's the only way to get in. And they always want, like, Anne and Sasha always wanted to be a tag team. That's how they always, you know, showed themselves off in their lower circuits. Is that they were always a tag team event. Like that was the thing. But now they can't. So. Now they have to be pit against one another. The other thing that is going on is that Marcy herself wants to be a wrestler, but she's, you know, she's more, like, she's on the writing staff and is always trying to get the CEO of the company to let her be a wrestler, or at least try out to, you know, to sign a contract for a wrestling, at least for short term. And who is this CEO? It's Stan. Stan is like Vince McMahon. He is because of course Stan would fit the Vince McMahon role. So Stan does own the company. He used to be a wrestler himself and is now owner of the company. And he did run, you know, Ford used to be part of this, but Ford retired. He gave up most of his shares, and Stan is running the company. Now, he's not like a total asshole like Vince was, but he is kind of a he is still kind of scummy. It's Stan, after all. So Stan runs the company, and now you may be wondering, well, what about the rest of the Pines family? They're all wrestlers too. Dipper and Mabel are the heirs of the Empire, so to speak, and they're both wrestlers in their own right. In fact, they have a tag team audience. That's another thing. This circuit allows male and female not only tag teams, but also male versus female wrestling matches, which aren't really a thing in most circuits, especially what you see in AEW or WWE. You mostly see that, and it's more like brutal. It's in the Japanese circuits the most, but in this one, it's like, you know, Stan had this whole thing, like, he basically wrote in this new rule that men can fight women and women can fight men, or men and women can do tag teams together, or there can be male-female handicap matches, because he's like, I want to get better ratings, and most of the other like companies he gets calls from is like, that's really not uncalled for, and Stan's like, yeah, well, I'm the one making money, so fuck y'all. And that's kind of Stan's mindset. Now, let's talk about some of the other wrestlers, starting with Dipper and Mabel themselves. They're kind of like the McMahon family, just not as skeezy. Dipper really kind of puts himself, Dipper and Mabel both put themselves, not because, they're trying to get out of the shadow of their great uncle owns the company, so ergo they get everything. They're trying to get out of that shadow and prove themselves their own wrestlers. You also have Wendy, who is kind of like Becky. I kind of imagine this version of Wendy is a lot like Becky Lynch. I do know, I may not be a wrestling guy, but I do know some wrestlers, thanks to being, you know, orbiting my good friend Chris a lot. So Becky Lynch I kind of so Wendy's a lot like Becky Lynch, because of course Wendy would, if she was a wrestler, she'd call herself the Man. She is with Dipper, and they do have a group called Decipher, with her, Mabel, Dipper, and Seuss. Seuss in here is a big he's like a big wrestler. He was also the protege of Stan. He was a wrestling fan in his younger days, and was a big fan of Stan, and actually became his assistant, and then Stan promoted him to be a wrestler. So Stan is training Seuss to be like his protege. And they're all part of the group Decipher, which is, again, reference to Bill Cipher. And when they do the theme together, they all do the, like, the eye thing, the triangle and the eye thing. Anywho. So, as for other wrestlers, you have Toffee, who is kind of like the Sting of this universe. He's the oldest wrestler, and he's one of the few older generation that's still going. He's a lot like Sting or Undertaker, where he does have a heel approach, like he is a heel, but he's also got a lot of like backrooms, locker room leadership. Like if shit doesn't go, because it's all like, again, wrestling. I hate to tell all two people who don't know this, wrestling's fake. Toffee is kind of like the in-between guy. He's very much like, I will draw the line if Stan does something I don't agree with, and it endangers the health of the other athletes. But on the field, like when it's go time, when he's in the ring, he's scary. He's, you know, terrifying. Yeah. But when those cameras are off, he's like, all right, guys, huddle up. We got, you know, Stan's doing stuff, and we just got to roll with it. You have Penn Zero, who's kind of like a Seth Rollins or John Cena kind of wrestler, like that kind of in your face, I don't give a fuck, but I'm cool and I'm popular. He is with Sashi. He is with Sashi, and Sashi is kind of like a Asuka, kind of like she's straight from the Japanese circuit, and when she goes out on the field, like onto the ring, she has like an Oni mask that she takes off all scary. Sashi and Penn are together. Boone is also part of that group, and they call themselves the Part-Time Heroes. But when Penn is by himself, whenever he's going out into the ring, I always had, like, there's a song that was perfect for this AU, for this version of Penn, who's kind of arrogant, and he's just kind of like, you can't see me. If you've ever heard, like, Corey Taylor, lead singer of Slipknot and Stone Sour, musician in his own right, he did a song called CMFT Must Be Stopped. Listen to that song, and that was, if I could make this a real thing, that would be Penn's theme. CMFT Must Be Stopped. And when you hear it, you're like, yeah, that's totally Penn. That is like a wrestler, if there was a wrestler version of Penn Zero, that'd be his theme. But yeah. You also have Luz, who is the young wrestling protege of Ida, and Ida was is an older wrestler, and she never got a title because she always got cheated by Stan, and her sister was more popular. Ida's whole thing was that she was the Owl Lady, and she was kind of like a Cactus Jack, like a female Cactus Jack kind of wrestler who always got like fucked up and seriously injured in her matches. But she takes Luz under her wing, who goes by the stage name Azura. So Ida takes her under her wing and kind of teaches her. You have also Grimes, who's also from the older generation, and he's training, and he trains with Sasha. He's very much like a Ric Flair kind of wrestler. Grimes is like a Ric Flair kind of wrestler, and he teaches Sasha everything he knows, but at the same time, he's not ready to let it go. He's not ready to let his wrestling days, go. He's not ready to let it go. And he always tries to do tag team matches with Sasha. He tries to train her a lot, and she does appreciate it, because in Sasha's life in this AU, her parents never really liked the idea of her being a wrestler. So she has a father figure to grasp onto, but at the same time, she's like, Grimes, dude, you gotta back up. You gotta let me breathe. But it's all, but Marcy sees it as a cool story arc, seeing that bond and what they could do, what they could do with it. As for other wrestlers, you have Lilith. She she's part of it. Although she is like contemplating retirement, Hop Pop is he's not a manager, he's more of a just, I am a parent of a wrestling fan, and that wrestling fan is Sprig. Sprig has been a fan of Ann and Sasha's career since the low-key circus, so he's like part of the fan club, and he's always like cheering Ann as his favorite wrestler. You also have like Star. Star's kind of like, she has this pretty princess kind of vibe to her. She's very much like kind of has this kind of like manic pixie girl wrestler energy to her, while Marco is kind of like a Seth Rollins kind of like, I'm cool and I'm awesome, and if you come at me, I'm gonna put you on the ground. Tom has Tom, his wrestling persona is that like he pretends to be a demon and all that, and he like, when he goes out on stage, he like swallows fire and spews it out for the audience to see. Just crazy shit like that. Like, it was all like, all of this is just meant to be like a fun, hey, let's do some fun shit AU kind of story. And yeah, I took what little knowledge I had of wrestling and applied it to this AU. There's like, going to other characters, you have Amity, who her mom was a wrestler, and both of her parents were wrestlers, and they kind of got put in the family, kind of like, there's a lot of horror stories of like, I want you to be a wrestler like me, so Amity and her siblings are a wrestling group in their own right, and they're consider themselves wrestling royalty. Although Amity does have eyes on Luz, but Amity's a heel and Luz is a babyface, and they're trying to like keep that story together. And Amity's trying to like convince Marcy, can I just do a heel turn? Can I just turn heel to babyface and be with Luz out in the open? Because like I would rather prefer that. And Marcy's like, no, because then we have to find someone else. And they're like, well, why don't you do it? So that what leads to Marcy being a wrestler, is that she, and also like Sasha gets her own heel turn, and the three of them make her, Ann, and Sasha make a wrestling trio, like a divas trio. But yeah, so there you go, guys. That's pretty much the wrestling AU. Guys, let me know in the comments below. What did you guys think of it? Comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.